I grew up in a very musical household. My mother was, a Christian gospel singer in church. My father, for the music way it was labeled at the time, was heavily influenced in jazz and soul music, R&B, blues. My older brother was, he grew up in a rock-based type of liking towards music, and so music was everywhere. And me being the middle child, I was kind of like a sponge and just like gravitated towards all of that, just like everything going on. And so from the age of 5 is like really the earliest that I can remember where I had an interest in music, drumming per se. I was always tapping on things. I was hearing the music that my family was playing, and I just instantly started tapping. I would tap on desks. I would take spoons to make like when I hit the desk, it would vibrate and make like a snare sound, and if I had it up on like against something metal, it would kind of give a ringing like a cymbal sound. So I did different things, different configurations on the desk to simulate the drum. And one of my fondest memories, or at least when I really kind of knew that drumming is what I wanted to do, my father was heavily into James Brown at the time. And I remember distinctly the album, Revolution of the Mind, and it was a live album recorded at the Apollo in New York. And, whenever my dad would go to the bank and, play the lottery at the time, I was a little snot-nosed kid in the back seat, just sucking all that music in. And the drums were just so resounding. I saw the way it excited and inspired my dad. It was like, wow. So that's how it kind of started. And, with Christmases and stuff like that, I would get like drum sets because my family knew I was like crazy about tapping and drumming. So I started getting drum sets and just playing in the house, just, kind of messing around, forming my craft a little bit. My brother had rock bands in the house, and, they played like heavy metal and stuff like that. So we had, talking about genres, talking about interests, I'm all over the board. That was why one of the things when I was in Philly, at a particular time, I got so many calls to sit in different jobs because I could, be versatile across the genre board. So, back to my brother again, listening to his guys play music, sitting there, watch those guys interact. That's what I wanted to do. So it really kind of all started for me kind of, if you want to say professionally, playing out with folks. I started in an R&B band like at 15. And we, back at that time, it was a lot of, Prince and the Revolution. It was a band called Ready for the World. They did the song called Oh Sheila, kind of dating myself. If the gray hair didn't do it already. So we did a lot of that stuff, and we won a lot of talent shows. We were always like in first place. We got some notoriety around the Mount Airy section anyway, and so it even grew into an opportunity when I was 15 to audition for Warner Brothers, and that was a big accomplishment, at least for me at 15. Although there were some quirks with the vocalists that didn't go over well, and the whole thing didn't work out in the end. But still, to get noticed by Warner Brothers enough to have an audition, that was pretty significant. So then from that stage, we kind of fast forward a little bit. When I got up into my 20s, I was just listening to music. So it kind of was like, R&B from my dad, rock from my brother. But I remember this was like a life-changing moment when I was like 14, 15. My dad used to work overnights, and he was an avid music lover. He would bring home albums, and in the morning he would, just play these albums. I guess some of his friends would like, let him check out albums and bring the albums home and listen to them. And So one morning he brought home, and I never forget, Miles Davis' Bitches Brew. And I mean, for lack of a better explanation, it was like the sky opened up for me. Not too many people can hear and appreciate that genre of music that Miles started. And, so for me at 14, 15, my ears were wide open. And I was like, wow, what is this? So it was like life changing. I could go into two other pinnacle albums that he brought home that had that same effect on me. It was Herbie Hancock's album, Mawandishi, if I pronounced that right. It had an album, a piece on it called Hornet, and it had a piece on it called, I think it was Sundance or Moondance, if I'm correct with that. And then it was another album, Buddy Miles, the double live album. So everything for me was like centered around the 70s music scene, what was going on back then. And so all of those things had a profound effect on me. And I was just often running towards the jazz genre at that time, if you will. And that's where I've kind of stayed ever since, like 14, 15, just exploring everything that I could, from jazz rock to jazz fusion to classical jazz, to whatever you want to, label it or call it. I was just immersed into that genre, to that field of music. So about around like 20, it was through spiritual worship that I was engaged in at the time. There was a couple of musicians that I met, and we started, forming some bands with that, and playing around and stuff like that. And so, to make a long story short, that pretty much grew into a group later on when I was in my 30s called Hidden Treasure, and they were really big out in the Cokeville area, Phoenixville area. I actually brought them to the Philly area back in like 2009, and we played at the what was once called the West Oak Lane Jazz Festival. So they were there like years before, but when I got with them, the whole format of the band had changed, and we were really off and running, and we were doing well. But that didn't last long, and then I found myself shifting in another direction for a band. And then ultimately I was playing with an 11-piece band called Acoustic Band. And at the time, it was a venue in South Philly called Warm Daddy. And Warm Daddies, we auditioned for them, we flew them away, and we were like on a rotation playing. And Warm Daddies, like they would, like, it was big for them to give you like a night. But, we grew into having a Saturday night and a Sunday night, and then eventually like a 3-day residency, like during the holiday periods, like Memorial Day or Labor Day. So that was a pretty huge thing to be built for all 3 nights with those guys. And they kept us on a rotation. And so that was a really, another stage of my musicianship, or my growth as being a musician. And then lastly, where it left off at, before I left Philadelphia and came to Atlanta, I was in a group with, he's one of the performers this year, as he has been previous years, Glenn Bryan and Friends. I think I played with him about 5 or 6 years. It was a funny story because I was living in the Massachusetts area at one time, and I had come back home to stay in Philly, and I went to the Lancaster Jazz Festival. So I'm sitting there on the sideline. His drummer at the time didn't show up, and they're due to play. And it's like, oh, what do they do? And so Leo and another lady who's going to be playing with me this year, Diane Lyle Smith, said, hey, you play, right, Tim? And I said, yeah, I'll play. And they put me on the stage. Boom. No rehearsal with these guys or anything at a major jazz festival. And I remember it was funny. I come off the stage, and like the closest thing that I could simulate it to was Glenn Bryan's voice. Kind of sounded like Miles type. He was like, you got a card. that was the only thing he said to me. And I was off and running with him for 5, 6 years. And we had a lot of good performance dates in and around the city. He's notable in the city. And so, but then, I met my wife, and here I am. So I'm born and raised from the Mount Airy section of Philadelphia. That's where I grew up at. I went to school in and around the area. I was parochial schooled. I went to, Bishop McDevitt High, graduated from there, went to Temple University, and, pretty much a Philly native, just from Mount Airy. So my history with the Lancaster Arts and Music Festival basically goes back several years, about 5 or 6 to be exact, where I was a drummer for Glenn Bryan and Friends. I started out with him just sitting on the sidelines, and he needed a drummer the day of the music festival. And, I got on board, got on the stage that day, performed with them. And then after that, it turned into like a 5-6 year long stint of being his drummer, playing in and around the Philadelphia area. But what gave me the creative idea to form the Tim Vaughan Inside and Outside Ensemble was with my very dear friend, who I consider like a second father, my friend Leo Gatson, who I'm very close to. So Leo has given me many ample opportunities to be a part of the Lancaster Jazz Festival. But bringing in my own unit, he kind of helped spawn the title of the band. And the whole premise of the Inside Outside Ensemble is we play inside the music and we play outside the music, which means we kind of do a little bit of this, a little bit of that. The whole premise of the unit is to pay homage or to recognize some of the unsung heroes of jazz, as well as some of the more familiar heroes of jazz. With Leo being a real close sounding board for a lot of things that inspire me, he would hit me to like artists that were a part of the Black Jazz label, which for me was like new, like learning about some of these artists, which I've never heard of really before. Leo kind of, taking me under his wing and educating me about these guys like Henry Franklin, which I just love his music, which I'll be featuring one of his compositions within my set. Guys like Calvin Keys, and I could go on and on and on, but so there's been many contributors to this genre called jazz, or which really, jazz musicians hated that word. Really, what it is entitled to be Black African American classical music is really what it really comes out to be. But however you want to name it or phrase it, there's been a lot of contributors to this music that have, really kind of had their shine at a particular time, and just went away, and most folks don't recognize their contributions to this music. So in essence, that's what I try to bring to my performance, to highlight some of these unsung contributors of the music, to feature some of the well-known, and just keep the whole legacy of the music alive. I think for those who attend some of the concerts that Leo Gatson puts on, First Fridays, and then he has some pop-up performances that happen in and around the city every month. I mean, this guy should have a plaque put up. That's how much he's brought to the community, and that's the whole essence of this thing. Being a part of this festival, it's like it gives back to the community, and it helps build the community with something positive, and all the while keeping the strong legacy of this music alive. And so that's what my contribution to this festival will bring. That's what I hope to bring, and I'm just so happy to be a part of it, to have my musical voice have shined forth, and just recognizing some of these great people who have inspired my life, and I'm pretty sure as well as other people's lives. Okay, when thinking about coming back to Philadelphia this year to be a part of the Lancaster Arts and Music Festival, What I really hope to gain from it, if not to give to it, is just, my vision, my concepts of music, which touch me, these unsung heroes of the music, these known heroes of the music, just to keep these guys in the forefront so that their legacy never dies. And it's just like when being a musician, there's an interchange that musicians really only feel when they're playing. I'm a drummer. If there's a bass player, there's a keyboardist, and maybe a saxophone player. When they play, you kind of bounce off of one another, and that's just how it is. That's that interchange between that energy between everyone. So similarly, with an audience, I'm just hoping to my concepts or the things that I value musically, I hope to, entertain, if not help to inspire, to help remember, and to help, keep the legacy of jazz music, African American classical music, alive in the Philadelphia area, and maybe help touch some young person coming about, because the torch has been passed already, and these these young guys that are coming along playing are doing just honor to the whole legacy of the music. So if anything else, that's what I hope to do. And I hope to just get encouragement from the audience and just vibe with all the beautiful people. It's always really a beautiful scene at the Lancaster Jazz Festival. So I'm just really looking forward. I feel privileged to be coming from Atlanta, my new hometown, back to Philly, my main hometown, to play and perform. And I'm just looking forward to seeing all the nice, friendly, smiling faces that I know will be present. So